Hello out there, YouTube. So it's been a minute again. I want to talk about some of the newer parts of my collection. I've acquired a few things since my small break, and since I started and finished the last knife series. This evening, I want to talk about This is the Ritter Hogue RKMS KG2, I don't know what the hell it's called. It's the Ritter Hogue. This is a wonderful knife. This is the knife that Metal Complex is always talking about when he says the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case the Ritter Hogue. He considers this to be the perfect Griptilian. I don't know if I'd say that, because it doesn't necessarily check all the boxes for me, but that said, it's a fantastic knife. So this knife's coming in at, see if I can figure out how to do this without wounding myself. About just under 8.5 inches with about just under 3.5 inch blade length and right about 3.25 inch cutting edge. We'll compare it size-wise to the Benchmade Bug Out. The Kershaw Leak, and the Spyderco Tenacious. It's actually a really good comparison in size to the Spyderco Tenacious. In size, blade shape, I mean, in a lot of ways, it's very, size-wise, very comparable to the Tenacious. Stocks, pretty similar. So it's a fairly good sized knife, but it's right in my wheelhouse of carry. So G10 scales, 20 CV blade. I forget. Hogue calls it the Able Lock. But the action on this is ridiculously smooth. Anyone that saw my... Oh, and it comes with a deep carry pocket clip too, by the way. Just, it's such a good knife. The only little problem I've had with this knife is after cycling it a number of times, just doing that, just fidgeting with it. I noticed that this has happened twice now, and the second time I hope I fixed it. But I noticed that the blade started to develop a little side-to-side play. I tightened up the pivot, play went away, so the pivot seemed to be working itself loose. And I did it again yesterday, just cycled it a bunch of times, and I noticed that the pivot was kind of working loose. So I took the pivot out, and I put a liberal amount of blue Loctite on it, and it seems to be holding up nicely. I also put a couple of drops of oil on either side of the blade. But the action on this knife is spectacular, and that seems to be a trend with Hogue knives, because my Deca has a very similar action to it. Just clean, buttery smooth. No blade play, perfectly centered. Just a really fantastic knife. So, like I said, it was about 8.4 inches overall length, 3.4 inches blade length. We'll grab a weight. What I'll say about it is it is fairly heavy at 4.65 ounces, 4.66 ounces. It's a fairly heavy knife. Now, it's not overly heavy, but it's a fairly heavy knife. So Metal Complex always compares this to the Benchmade Reptilian. Let's take a look. There are obvious physical similarities, and that's kind of where Doug Ritter, who apparently is quite the advocate for knife rights, he got his first commission as a designer with Benchmade, and they collaborated to make basically a Benchmade Ritter version of the Reptilian. Now, I don't know if that one's different than this one, but this one, I will say, compared to a straight up Benchmade Reptilian, very, very close in overall size. I wouldn't say quite identical. I think the Ritter Hogue is just the tiniest, and I mean 1/16 of an inch bigger, or 1/32 of an inch bigger. But it's a really good comparison. Close enough to call it, you know, equals, I guess. Now, what I will say, this knife will not take Reptilian scales. I mean, just based off of hole locations. I mean, this one would probably line up, this one would probably line up, and this one would line up. But these two on the spine would not. That said, you know, these G10 scales are really good. They've got a really positive texture, a really positive grip on them. Some fairly aggressive jimping on the spine. But in terms of size, the Hogue Deca compares perfectly with the Benchmade Bug Out. In terms of size, the Hogue Ritter compares perfectly with the Reptilian, the full-size Reptilian. So that was pretty much it. I just wanted to... Oh, this knife is a KnifeWorks exclusive. It costs about $165 for anyone that's interested. And yeah, I mean, just check for availability. But I'll tell you right now, this is a special knife. I mean, the action on it is just so good. Compared to... I mean, the action on my Bug Out, or my Reptilian's actually really good as well, but this is the top 10 action. This is the top 5 action without a doubt. So, like I said, I just wanted to let everyone see the Ritter Hogue 20 CV G10 scales. Spectacular action, deep carry pocket clip, able lock. Did I say it has a spectacular action? So if anyone's interested in getting one of these, doing a little research on it, this is absolutely a knife that you will not regret. If you guys have any comments or questions, leave them down below. Y'all have a great night.